Tuesdays, we visit with Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan Newsletter. Well, then why don't we do that? Let's go out to the D4 Land Services hotline. Joe, my brother, how's your universe?
Pretty good, man. Got out to a ball game last week. Just enjoying the rhythm of the season.
Well, I know you don't get to go to many, and I think it's one of the weirdest things in the world. For someone who baseball is the temple, baseball is the church. You eat, sleep, breathe, and worship baseball. It's always struck me as so oddish that you get to go to so few games, and it's because you're at home watching 20 games at once and writing every day.
It's a few things. One is that I'm not a reporter, and I've done reporting in the past, but I'm more of an analyst and a columnist. Some of it is the way if you had told me, actually was talking about this with my friend at the game last week, and said, if you had told me when I was 12 years old, you're going to live 11 subway stops from Yankee Stadium but not have season tickets, I would have laughed. But it's a lot of things. I mean, obviously the home experience has become a lot better than it was when you could watch 1 or 2 games a night. I could watch every single game. So it's easier for me to do my job from home. But another thing, Louie, is just I don't. There was an article actually this week about the noise level at Yankee Stadium and how punishing it is, and especially noticeable at night games. I was at a day game last week, and it wasn't as bad. But the actual game experience isn't really that great here at the New York stadiums. It's just not great if you want to sit and watch a ball game. So that's chased me away a little bit. So it's a combination of things. The other thing, too, is I don't work from the ballpark. If I'm going to a ball game, it's a social. I'm hanging out with my buddy. We're catching up on our kids and our lives, and we're watching the game, and we're talking about our fantasy teams. I'm absolutely not sitting there with, a protractor, trying to calculate launch angles. It's not the way I go to a game. So there's a lot of different reasons why I don't go to as many games as you might think. I go to games around. I'm going to Camden later in the year. I'm supposed to be in Fenway this week. That didn't happen. I'll be out in L.A. later this year. I try to get to 7 or 8 ballparks over the course of the year, but it might only be maybe 12 or 13 games all told.
Yeah, you go to the games, I call it as a civilian. You're not laptopping, you're not writing, you're not V-logging, B-logging, T-logging. You're just there to watch the game with a beer and a hot dog.
And friends, social experience. I can't remember the last time. I used to go to a bunch of games just by myself and, keep score and kind of think about the game. And now for me, it's almost entirely a social experience. Here's the thing. I know a lot of people who, over time, through reporting on the game, through watching games in a press box context, through having to spend 7 hours at a ballpark, lose that love of being at the ballpark. And I never want to be that guy. I never want to go think about a ballpark as being a place I don't want to be. So by doing it this way, look, I had a great time last week. It was 80 degrees. I watched Trout, Judge, and Stanton, 2 Hall of Famers and a Navy hit home runs. Trout hit a ball that still hasn't landed. It wasn't a great game. I mean, Yankees lost 11-4. It was kind of a little sloppy game, but it was just a fun day. And I always want my trips to the ballpark to be a fun day. So by doing it the way I do, that's kind of the way it's worked out for me. And then, most nights I'm at home. 6 o'clock tonight, the Guardians game starts, the Astros. I'll be there from 6 until 12:30, whenever the game's end. And that'll be work. That'll be taking notes and bopping around through different games. I want to see this pitcher's half inning. Look, it's second and third, nobody out here. And I'll be on Slack talking about the games. That's how I do my job. But if I'm at a ballpark, man, let's just have some fun.
Amen to that. I want me a big old plate of Sheriff Blaylock nachos and a bratwurst.
There you go.
You know what's not fun? The New York Mets. They've lost 11 straight, and they're starting to reach into historical, almost biblical kind of proportions now.
They lost Juan Soto, and everything went sideways. They were 4-4. They were 4-3 with a lead when Soto left the game on April 4th, I want to say. And since then, they're 3-11. The 11-game losing streak. They're scoring 2.6 runs a game. Obviously, they've had other injuries as well. Bo Bichette, the big free agent signing, that hasn't worked out. He's got a knee issue. He's not hitting. You go back. Placido Polanco's had both ankle and wrist problems. Jorge Polanco has had ankle and wrist injuries. He's on the IL now. The big rookie, Carson Bench, hasn't hit at all. It's been a total offensive collapse. The pitching's basically middle of the pack. Nolan McClain's been great. Kodai Senga's been terrible. Everybody else is pretty much in the middle. But it's the offense that has really let them down. They've scored 2 runs or fewer in 9 games during the streak. 9 of the last 14 games. They lost Soto. And you're not going to beat anybody that way. The pitching isn't that good to win that way. So, we'll see what happens tonight. I thought they might take advantage of the off day to let Carlos Mendoza, the manager, go. I wasn't a fan of Mendoza last year. I think they should have let him go at the end of last year. They've stuck with him. They stuck with him now through the 11-game losing streak. Who knows how much rope he's got. They will get Soto back at some point during the next week. They said they're the homestand, so through the middle of next week. That's going to help them a lot. I mean, Soto's, you think about injuries in baseball aren't injuries in basketball or football, right? Where one guy can basically end your season. You lose a Patrick Mahomes, you lose a Jason Tatum. Okay, that's a bad example. But you lose a superstar and your season falls apart. In baseball, it's not usually like that. But Juan Soto is one of the 5 guys in baseball you really can't replace. So, is he worth a run and a half a game? No, he's not. But he's certainly, in taking him away, has helped cripple this Mets offense.
How much is too much? I understand that we're effectively, Thursday will mark the end of the first month, but they're already 8.5 back. And I've already seen some historical, there's only 3 teams ever that lost 11 straight and made the playoffs in the same season. So it is getting kind of dark early.
Even if you look at more recent, if you lost 11 in a row in 1927, it was harder to make the playoffs than if you did it in 2017, right?
Fewer teams made the playoffs.
Exactly. So I looked at just since 96, which is the 8-game playoffs and 162-game season. Remember, the 95 season was shortened by the recovery from the strike. So since 96, there have been just 3 teams to win 11 straight, to lose 11 in a row, and even finish over 500. One of them won 82 games. One of them won 84 games. And the other example is the 2017 Dodgers, who were one of the strangest teams ever. They were on pace to basically set the record for wins in a season and then lost 11 games in a row in September. They went on to make the playoffs, lost to the Astros in the World Series. So basically, in the modern era, there have been 64 teams to lose 11 in a row, and just one of them made the playoffs.
So the odds are now heavily against them. Okay. I mean, very obvious statement. But
as you said, they're 8.5 behind the Braves. Now, they still haven't played the Braves yet. They have 13 games left against the Braves. The Braves have been much better than expected in the early going. We expect the Mets to get healthier as we go along here. But it's possible that what David Stearns did in the offseason just isn't going to work. Now, I defended the overall philosophy of saying, hey, look, the team we had last year, the Alonso, Nimmo core that they'd had for a while, that wasn't going to win. Let's try to turn this over. And even individually, like signing Bichette, trading for Luis Robert, I think these were moves that you could defend. But it may just be that collectively, they're not going to work out. Like trading for Marcus Semien. I mean, Semien, he's losing a step defensively. He's good, but not great. And he hasn't hit for 3 years now. So it may be that Stearns just had a really bad offseason, and it's going to cost us.
Fair enough. The San Diego Padres, it looks like they're finally going to be sold to the Christmas singer guy. And the Padres have been to sale for 2 years now.
Yeah, the family's been pretty highly motivated. I mean, ever since Peter Seidler passed, almost about 18 months ago now, they've been trying to get rid of the team. And, the family just wants to be done with it, collect the money, move on. And, yeah, I respect that. One of the things that you run into trouble in baseball is when the son or the daughter inherits the team, but doesn't have the same passion for baseball, and they kind of run it on a shoestring. We've seen this in Minnesota with the Polads. We've seen this in Detroit with the Illiches. You're better off as a fan having the team be sold than have it be owned by the son or daughter who just wants to turn it into an annuity. So this is actually going to work out well for Padres fans, I think. As far as the deal, the reaction, I think, was the same everywhere, right? We've had nothing but owners whining for, my entire life. But more recently, like in the run-up to this coming CBA negotiation, there's been all this, we need all these restrictions on, you can't have the teams able to do whatever they want. And look, oh my God, we're losing all our cable money. And a team with no local TV contract in one of the smallest markets in baseball just sold for $4 billion. So I got to say, I think everybody kind of looked at this and said, well, wait a minute. How can you guys be crying poor if one of the team with one of the worst situations in baseball just sold for $4 billion?
Yeah, okay. I've been reading some of those headlines. I haven't really dug into it. Maybe you can help me with it. And it is, oh no, this shook up everything right before the negotiations.
Well, the negotiations are going to be what they're going to be. But in terms of the negotiations with the union, I don't know that it's going to affect things at the table. I think it affects the public conversation. Which, of course, you got to remember, this always happens on the phones, right? It's the guys in the room talking about the details, and it's each of them making the case to the public. And the owners have always been much better than this at this part than the players. And they've been kind of setting this up for a couple of years now. And again, 7 months before any serious negotiations are going to happen, we get this sale of like I say, the Padres have been successful. They've been drawing $3 million a year, in part because Peter Seidler went out and said, we're going to try to win. And they, San Diego's a weird thing, Louie, where it's a big city, but a small market. You've got an ocean on the west, a desert to the east, a foreign country to the south, and 2 teams to the north. So it's not like you're St. Louis, where, you're a smaller city, but you can draw from the entire Midwest. Denver, the Rockies are a similar situation here. The Rockies the Padres have always been this weird thing where big city, small market, which is not usually the way it works. But they've made it work. Here's the other thing, Louis. They're the only game in town. The Clippers left 45 years ago. The Chargers left 7 years ago now. San Diego State, they got a soccer team. They got San Diego State sports programs. But really, the Padres are the only game in town. That has helped them during this recent run where it's, hey, look, we're the city's sports franchise. And, Seidler embraced that, and he put a good team on the field. They made the playoffs a bunch. And I think that's made a difference. And that's been the example guys like me have said, if you're John Sherman in Kansas City, if you're the late Paul Dolan and now David Blitzer in Cleveland, if you're Bruce Sherman in Miami, we're saying, hey, look, if this guy can do it, why can't you? He's in a legitimately small market, but he went out, he spent money on his team, and look, now they're drawing 3 million people a year. What's to say you can't do that? So the Padres have been an example for that argument for a while, and now they're an argument to say, hey, look, if this team in a small market's worth $4 billion, why are you whining about your lot in life in these other places?
Makes sense. And okay, so you kind of answered the last thing. The 3.9 is a bit of a shock to everyone. I mean, do we know what the valuation when people thought it would be then? I mean, are we quibbling over like 0.1, or was it supposed to be 3 and it's 3.9?
No, I think you look at the Padres as a $3 million team. The Twins are asking, I want to say, for 1.7, and they weren't able to get that. And they're another team that's in this situation where they lost their local TV deal. But, of course, they haven't been successful in recent years. So their attendance has been going down. In fact, they've been one of the least active teams in the last 3 off seasons now. So you're turning off your fans when you do that. When you don't give your fans reasons to get excited in November, they're not going to show up in April and May. So the Padres reverse that trend. They say, hey, look, here are your reasons to get excited, and the fans showed up. So, the Padres getting 3.9, it's a little higher than expected, but I think it says a lot. Remember, we don't have a great view of these teams' books from the outside. If the union gets access to information that the public doesn't have, they've been, they're tied to NDAs. They can't release that information. Fine. But I will say that if you have a successful businessman come in and make what seems like an overpay for this franchise, it tells me that he's seeing the numbers and seeing where he's going to make an ROI. So that number, the fact that the Padres sold for more than expected, tells me that baseball's the underlying finances of the San Diego Padres are just fine.
I know for me, one last thing that stood out was the sale price of 3.9 is actually completely equal to his net worth. So when you talked about, was it worth it? He's putting his entire net worth on, numbers and columns can be fudged. That's one set of books, but still.
Well, my understanding is that he's buying a controlling interest in the team, so that values the team at $3.9 billion. So he's only shelling out, I think, maybe half that amount. And there are minority investors and other people coming in. So he's not literally writing a check for everything he owns. But it values the team at $3.9 billion. So that's an important number. And I think other owners are going to look at this, whether they want to stay in, whether they want to get out. That's going to be the number they look at now when they do start to look at it. Whether they say David Blitzer basically had a deal with the Guardians to where he would be taking over the Guardians over a period of years. Paul Dolan's death may accelerate that in Cleveland. But you have guys who are like, hey, look, do I want to get out? That's my number. I want to get the $4 million the Padres got. I think that's going to set the terms for a lot of these future deals.
Do you know which franchise is the least valuable? You mentioned Minnesota 1.7. What is the least valuable franchise in MLB?
Forbes does this every year. I want to say the Marlins right now, and a bit over $1 billion. The Royals sold for $1 billion about 4 or 5 years ago now that Sherman bought them. I think those are the two low end. I'm not sure what the Guardians are currently valued at. That would probably be in that mix as well. Maybe the Brewers. It's who you think. I mean, it's teams that are in fairly small markets where you just don't have the potential revenue that you have in other places. So, the teams that are in the smallest cities in baseball, and now that we're moving out of the RSN model, that entire revenue stream just doesn't really exist anymore. Where you say, okay, we're going to be able to get X million dollars a year from this regional sports network because that regional sports network is going to be able to get X number of dollars a month from every single cable subscriber. That model is dead. And MLB right now is kind of feeling its way around in the dark and trying to figure out what the next model is. And that change has fallen the hardest on these teams that were reliant on that RSN money.
And I guess, because I mean, what is the next model? You said MLB's feeling their way around. We don't know what the future model is, do we?
Well, if MLB if Ron Manfred could wave a magic wand, he would have everybody's local TV rights under one umbrella. Now, the problem with that is that there are still 7 or 8 teams that have very valuable local TV rights who don't really necessarily want to give them up to MLB. The catch that I want to make, the point I want to make here, and I know we're up against the break, but let me just say this. You think about MLB, and I think when fans hear that, they think, oh, Rob Manfred wants to give me blackout-free MLB.TV all year for $189 a year. That's not what they want. Look around the landscape even now. Apple, Netflix, Amazon. There are all of Peacock. There are all of these streamers with a little tiny piece of the package. That's what MLB wants. MLB wants not to be able to give you, baseball fan, 2,430 games a year for $189.99 a year. They want to carve this up into 17 different streamers.
They want to do the NFL. They want to do the NFL.
Or the NBA, for that matter. And so it's not going to be a fan-friendly situation. If they can get there, it's not going to be this fan-friendly paradise. It's going to be a thing where you've got to shell out to 13 different entities to get all the baseball games, or you're just not going to watch them games. I don't get Netflix, so I didn't get that the opening day, the opening night, the Yankee game. It's one of those things where it's not going to be as fan-friendly as you want, but that's the dream for MLB. Because there just aren't enough people in Milwaukee or Kansas City or what have you who are going to pay $129.99 a year for just the Royals games. You just can't make up. You were making $30-40 million a year, and you just don't have enough people that are going to do that. Baseball is just not that popular anymore. So we're in this transitional phase right now, and it's one of the things that, as the contracts expire, as we get to 28 and 29, you're going to see MLB try to get to something that's more like a national streaming service. But again, I don't think it's going to look as good. You're going to have a situation where if you're a fan of the Chicago Cubs and this world would have come about, your Cubs games would be like 100 on marquee, and then maybe 40 on something here, and then 20 on something here. You're just not going to have a good fan-friendly scenario. You mentioned the NFL. I think that's where MLB wants to get to, where they want to be able to get checks from 17 different streamers and then distribute them evenly to everybody else.
Well, okay. All right, let's take a time out, come back, pick that up.
Oh.
I think he cracked up, but I think he's on board with this. It is the Louie Bellina Show, Tuesday edition, lunchtime, thanks to Rudy's Barbecue. Joe Sheehan Newsletter, everything in the universe that's Major League Baseball, that's what they do in the Joe Sheehan Newsletter. He joins us on the D4 Land Services hotline. Forestry, mulching, pond construction. Do you need a custom metal building from the ground up? Visit d4landservices.com, d4landservices.com. I'll be right back.
Home, on the road, or Omaha. You can hear Aggie baseball on The Zone.
The Louie Bellina Show, Tuesday, rolling on. Back to the D4 Land Services hotline. We get to hang out with Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan Newsletter. Joe, it's just a final, buried parcel of a thought about how MLB, you sell off a Monday, Friday, Friday package, bam, Apple. Tuesday, Saturday, that's Netflix. Wednesday, Sunday, that's Paramount. Doubleheader Thursday, that's an exclusive. And then you start selling individuals. Who gets the July 4th game? That's an individual additional sale. Who gets the Field of Dreams game? And then, you do some additional the day before stuff too. Individual. The All-Star game will be sold separately. The playoffs are sold separately. It is the NFL, like we said, and that's how they're going to make the most amount of money. And then again, as you've already said, for us, the fan, oh my gosh. If you want to watch your favorite team, I'll say 100-plus games. I'm not even going to dare say 162. Do you have $200-300?
Right. And that's before, there's a DoorDash package on Saturday evenings, and there's a Pornhub package on Sunday mornings. There's a countless number of people. Anybody that's going to write a check, they will sell a little bit of this package. So, yeah, this idea that it's going to be some great thing, because I think a lot of fans are rooting for that. Oh, just take the rights from the Yankees and the Dodgers and whoever, and not really thinking that the Yankees and the Dodgers have rights or anything. I'm using rights in a confusing manner there. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, this isn't going to be some paradise for fans, and I think maybe down the road, 2030s, 2040s, 2050s, this gets better for fans. But I think we're heading into a market for sports broadcast rights and for paying for fans that's going to make cable look like paradise.
Best division in baseball. We know the worst is the AL West. Is that accurate? Am I off on that? The worst is the AL West?
It's early. I don't want to react too much to
Come on, Joe, be a fan. It's what we do. Don't be the expert. Don't be the guy who does this. I need more data points. You know the AL West is the worst. You don't need to wait.
I think the AL Central's got a case. The Royals have now lost 8 in a row. The White Sox look like they're a little bit better than last year. I think the best team in the AL West is better than the best team in the AL Central, and you can convince me that the best 2 teams in the West are better than the entire AL Central. So I'm not really ready to give that one up yet.
All right. Hey, there's hope. There's hope. What's the best division in all of baseball?
It's still the AL East for me. I know the NL Central's off to this crazy start. Every team in the division is 12-9 or better, and that's been kind of getting a lot of the attention. But the AL East still has an incredible amount of depth. We've seen the Red Sox get off to a slow start. We've seen the Jays get off to a slow start. They should be better than those starts. Just the talent. I'm still looking more, Louie, at talent levels, skill levels, the kind of players they might bring up during the season. I think the AL East is still going to end up, by the time we're all said and done, as having the overall best record in baseball. Now, we can measure this. We can look and say, how did this division do against the other divisions in baseball? And typically, at the end of most years, the AL East is going to be first.
Everything you said just made the American League the most fun league, right? Because if you have the best and worst division, because I don't know, as a fan, I'm only talking as a fan, right? There is fun in rooting for bad, right?
Mediocre, anyway. I mean, I don't think anybody really wants to root for the Rockies. Are we going to win 100? We're going to win 55 games. But I do think that if you don't have a lot of great teams, if everybody's clustered around the middle, it does make for more interesting summers. It makes for more interesting pennant races. I prefer greatness. I would rather watch a great division race between 98-win teams, which you can't have anymore, of course, than the wild card mashups among 82 and 83 and 84-win teams. But I think for most fans, the 6-car pileup to get to 85 wins is the more interesting summer story.
You just insulted my good friend Matt Simon because he's been a Rockies fan through it all. So, yes, you can be a Rockies fan. And B, this is random. Can Pittsburgh Pirate fans be happy? Are they real? Or because the Pirates have gotten off to decent starts before only to be the Pittsburgh Pirates in the end. Can they be happy?
Again, because the middle of the NL is so bleh, that's a technical term, I think you can say, hey, look, every stretch we go that we're playing 500 ball or better keeps us in this race for a little bit longer. It might only take 84, 85 wins. I think real concerns about the bullpen. I mean, especially at the back end. It's just not very good. I don't think the offense is going to hold up. We've seen they called up, Connor Griffin. We talked about him before. He hasn't played all that well for them. He's holding on to a job. He's good defensively. They'll see how that goes. I just don't think they have the talent base. They have the front-end talent, but they still have to fill in. It's a lot of Ryan O'Hearns and Marcelo Ozunas and Brandon Laus, who are decent players, but not really good enough to support a fair, you've got Skeens up top. You've got Griffin up top. Maybe Bubba Chandler is a guy you put in that group. But they neither have the championship caliber core yet, nor the supporting staff. I think they're still the 4th best team in that division behind the Cubs, Brewers, and Reds. So
that playing the technical term, is that sabermetrics?
It is. I don't like to get too technical on you, but there's there's woo, and that's kind of the stuff that we've been working on for 30 years.
I remember that was in Joe Sheehan Newsletter edition number 52. I have that framed up on my wall.
Yeah, I actually was able to make the sounds in it. It was really fun.
Oh, good times. Joe, we talk Astros Rangers. I've been intentionally avoiding it because it's kind of painful. Like, the St. Louis Cardinals were struggling to start the year, and all of a sudden they're contenders again. And I keep cautioning people, no. They just played the Astros.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, that game on Sunday, I wrote about them briefly yesterday. They actually have more. They're tied with the Blue Jays for the most reliever losses in baseball. They were through Sunday anyway. I don't know what happened yesterday. Brian King, shutout inning in the ninth, gave up the ghost runner and a couple of other runs in the 10th. They ended up losing. They have 8 losses out of their bullpen. Their right-handed relievers have just the right 6.5 ERA, 6.8 FIP, almost worth 2 wins below replacement so far. Just a horrific collection of pitchers. And, we talked about this at the end of last year. When Brian Abreu had to go into the closer role at the end of last year, they were really exposed, behind him, and we've seen that this year. Angel de los Santos has given a couple good innings, but by and large, they just don't have any depth from the right side. So with Abreu blowing up, it's just a hope. That's really been their issue so far this year. They had and again, I'm going to give you numbers for Sunday. It's tied for the second best offense in baseball going into Monday's games, and this is still how poorly they're playing. So it's just a collapse of the pitching. Even in rotation, 3 starters on the IL. The other 2 have a combined ERA of 6.5. McCullers and Burrows. So they got a decent start yesterday out of Arrighetti. I'm a fan of his. I think he's actually going to be a really big help for them, but it's not going to be enough. And I do think this is the year where they're going to have to face the do we rebuild question.
Yeah, I was surprised when they sent him down and they were going to use a 6-man rotation. I really was. Look, I don't want to go through all the. Ryan Weiss is now in the starting rotation. Should have always been in the starting rotation. You and I talked about that once before. They just made a lot of weird decisions. Did the Astros, but I don't know what the right or wrong was. There are no right or wrong decisions. Okay, I'll hit you with one last thing here. I know you need to go too. Joe Espada. It was inevitable. I saw the headline. I think it was maybe even Athletic, but the whole thing is like these 3 managers, and Espada was one of them. Their horrible starts, and their jobs are in jeopardy. Their jobs are in question. I don't know if he's good or bad. I just know when you consider the injuries last year, this year, no manager would be good. You could bring back the greatest manager you think in MLB history. They cannot manage what has happened to the Astros the last 2 years.
Weren't we talking about Espada as manager of the year last July?
Yes. They were at a 6-game lead. I don't know if it was late July, mid-July last year. But the injuries, if Hader doesn't go down, if Jordan would have played more than 20, there's a million ifs. And then this year, they currently have 14 players on the IL. They lead Major League Baseball. How are you supposed to know if Espada's good or bad?
Look, I can point to Mendoza, New York, and say these are the reasons I would let him go. Joe Espada has just been a victim of injuries. There's just nothing any manager is going to be able to do when you lose 60% of your starting rotation, plus Pena, plus Myers, and plus your closer. And again, it's an organization where the talent base has been slipping for a while because of the work of the front office. And still, those drastic penalties they had in 20 and 21 or 21 and 22, those were big penalties. And that affects your farm system as well. But none of that has anything to do with Joe Espada. Joe Espada has had as much to do with this 4th start as I have.
All right, I'm in agreement with you. Again, he might be awful. You just can't tell. There's too many other things in the way. The roster construction he has nothing to do with is not necessarily an A grade or a B grade either. And he has nothing to do with that right now. So, Joe, I got to let you roll, brother. Dude, you know how much fun this is for me. I love talking ball with you. Be awesome. Real quick, where can people go check out the excerpts from your newsletter? Where can they get more info on the Joe Sheehan Newsletter? Where can they go if they love baseball like you and I do?
JoeSheehan.com. Go check out excerpts from everything I do. A bunch of free pieces are up there and subscription information. JoeSheehan.com.
Joe Sheehan. And the tough part is nobody can spell Sheehan. Even you spell it wrong. Joe, be awesome, brother. I'll talk to you next week.
Take care, brother.
Later. Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan Newsletter on the D4 Land Services hotline. It's every Tuesday thing. We talk MLB, Major League Baseball. If you ever need help with your land, cleared, excavated, you just need your land fixed up, get more info at d4landservices.com. d4landservices.com. I'll be back. We're going to take a look at the rest of the world of sports, your text messages, and more. It's the Louie Bellina Show on the Zone.
Make sure to get the podcast of Texags Live, The Louie Bellina Show, or Chip Howard Sports Talk Daily at zone1150.com and everywhere you get your podcasts.
I think they're one of the more underrated bands, classic rock artists, period of all time. ELO, Electric Light Orchestra. Like if I could sit you down and then just, give me an hour, play some tunes, you'd be like, dude, they rock. And I'd be like, yeah, dude, they do. It is the Louie Bellina Show from inside the Charles Schwab studio. Big fan of Charles Schwab. Why? Local. You're not going to be on hold for an hour? You're not going to be one of 1 million? We have Mark Sim right here in College Station. He is the Charles Schwab branch in College Station. And when you have local, you walk into an office, you shake a hand, you look someone in the eye, you sit down, you have a conversation. That's kind of how I like to do business. But when you're talking about your financial now and your financial future, is there any other way you'd want to do business? Find out more. Go get answers to your questions. Go to schwab.com/College Station. Charles Schwab and Company Incorporated, member SIPC. How about we jump into the rest of the world of sports? On the Louie Bellina Show, we happen to live in a maroon and white universe, and we all love it. And yeah, we talk to people like Mitch Light and others. We go regional, national, but the rest of the world of sports. The Astros yesterday, and I'm about to cry, and I promised myself I wasn't going to cry today. The Astros won a game. Snapped the 3-game losing streak. It was game 1 in Cleveland against the Guardians. 9-2 the final. Christian Walker, yard. 3 for 5, 2 RBIs. Isaac Paredes, homer. 2 homers. 3 for 5, 2 RBIs. Yes, 2 homers. Pitching-wise, Joe hinted at it. Spencer Arrighetti, 5-2. He is the only, and it's not an exaggeration, it's not Lou doing the voodoo that Lou do so well. Spencer Arrighetti, brilliant. Bullpen, 4 innings, nothing. No runs, no earned runs, no unearned runs. Nobody scored. Astros gave up 2 runs. I put it in my dear diary. The Astros only gave up 2 runs today. My diary didn't believe me. So 9-2 the final. Astros beat the Guardians in game 1. Now, because Aggie baseball got canceled, not rescheduled against UTSA tonight, you will hear game 2, Astros Guardians tonight. You will hear game 2 tonight. 5:10 first pitch. First spit. They spit. It's baseball. First pitch. The way it's going to work, Chip Howard Sports Talk 4 to 5:10. Then 5:10 Astros baseball. Thanks to Kelly Burt Dozer. Astros baseball on the zone or select games on Willie 1550 AM. That is thanks to Kelly Burt Dozer. Ryan Weiss gets the start. He is the starter that the Astros signed to be a reliever who has adjusted horrifically to being a reliever. Oh yeah, now he's a starter again. Astros baseball 2026. Catch the fever. But again, Walker yard, Paredes hits 2, Arrighetti, another fantastic start. Bullpen was brilliant. Maybe the best game of the year for the Astros. Go Stros. Here on the Louie Bellina Show. Oh, you're wondering about the Texas Rangers, aren't you? They were off. They're going to open up a series. The Rangers have had a brutal schedule-wise start to the year. Now they're going to get to eat for a while. They get their A's and Rockies portion, whereas the Astros had the greatest 2-week start to a season, and due to injuries, just total faceplant. Now the Rangers get to eat. Here on the Louie Bellina Show, I got 2 things for you, right? Go Stars. Go Stros. And this past weekend was glorious. Aggie baseball sweeps LSU. Thank you. Shoot it in my veins. Aggie softball gets the sweep too. Both our Diamond Sports teams have positioned themselves. Baseball is in the super hosting. Aggie softball, I think, is comfortable to host a regional at least. And if they take 2 out of 3 from OU, things got real quick. They might be SEC champs, and I think it'll be tough for them to host the Super, but take 2 out of 3 from OU, and let's talk about it then. That's the final series of the year, Davis Diamond. OU at maybe the most prolific offense in the history of college softball. It's scary. A&M softball, they bash and bash too. Man, that's going to be maybe the premier series of the year in softball. No, I'm not exaggerating. Oh, go Stars, go Stros. So this past weekend, where the brooms were flying, thanks to both A&M Diamond Sports, last night for me was quite glorious too, because the Stros won a game, and anytime the Astros win a game this year is going to be a highlight. But the Dallas Stars forgot that the Stanley Cup playoffs started on Saturday. They lost 6-1, and it was the most miserable game maybe of the year. It was definitely the most, that's where you got to be careful about exaggeration. It's one of the most miserable Stars playoff games I'd seen I say at one of, because there was the way they got eliminated last year when they didn't fight in Game 5. Like, how could you no-show that? Was horrific. But the game won Saturday, 6-1. Ottinger was awful. The team was awful. It was all awful. But last night, early on, Ottinger makes a save. Wyatt Johnson banks one in on right after that kind of momentum swing, about 9 minutes in. Ottinger gets tested about 4 minutes later. And I'm telling you, the whole team fed off of it. They're like, oh, we have good Ott tonight. And they fed off it and got fired up off of it too. His play fueled the team because they were like, good Ott, we can win tonight. And 4-2 final. 4-2 final. Stars bounced back in a big way. I wish I knew the answer to this. Maybe it's because, well, I'm a hockey fan and maybe I'm smarter than the average hockey bear. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be Mr. Hockey either. Why do they stink in Game 1 so hard? I mean, Saturday was different. That wasn't just stinking. That was kind of inexcusable levels of bad. Wyatt Johnson was your first star with 2 goals. Duchesne, a goal and assist. And then, of course, I think the whole team fed. When they knew they had good Ott, they're like, we can win. Stars even the series. On the Louie Bellina Show, I got 2 things for you. Go Stars, go Stros. And they both played magnificently, brilliantly last night. I promised myself I wasn't going to cry, so I won't. But it was a great night to be alive. 979-693-1150. J84 even texted in, good bounce back starts. Go Stars. Yes. Go Stars. They've been to the Western Conference Final like 3 straight years. If you're a Stars fan, if you're the Dallas Stars organization, it's I don't want to say Stanley Cup or bust, but even if you make the Western Conference Finals again and you lose, you had to fire the coach for a bunch of reasons. When DeBoer threw Ottinger under the bus, as the owner, you had to make a decision. Okay, do I want the coach or the goalie? One of them has to go now. There's no universe they would have coexisted. And I think the obvious answer was always going to be Ottinger. And everything they've done is to get to the final. I mean, to win it all, but you can't just go to the Western Conference Final and lose. Anything short of the Western Conference Final is an absolute disaster. Go Stars. I also would like to say go Omaha. Aggie baseball has brought that reality into play. Why? Because they're 8th in the RPI. Ever since doubleheader Friday, Vanderbilt. And with the pitching, putting back-to-back weekends where they've been good, not bad, good enough. I feel like you could say Omaha now, and no one has to throw tomatoes at you. So, go Stars, go Astros, go Omaha. I think that's a pretty good line right now. I need to time out. I need to return. Oh, we got to go back to this day in history, the lifestyles portion of the Louie Bellina Show. That's how we'll wrap up the lunch hour of the Louie Bellina Show. Lunchtime is thanks to Rudy's Barbecue.
We are going. Are you ready? The Zone 1150 AM and 93.7 FM. Our blood, our sweat, their tears.
It's time. Oh, here we go.
Let's go. I got a text message we're going to wrap things up with. It's from Jeff Watson. Louie, Stars looked tired Game 1, but woke up in Game 2. Go Stars, go Rangers. No. Sorry, Jeff, no. How can you be tired in game one? You played on Wednesday, playoffs for Saturday. You had kind of almost an extra day off. How can you be tired at that point? Like, I'm dead serious when I say that too. How can you be tired? Like, I find that inexcusable. They look like they were disinterested. They look like they forgot they had the game Saturday. I don't think you can be tired. Like, I know that's what they look like, but that's just inexcusable. And on the Louie Bellina show, oh, no. There are no Go Rangers. Sorry, man. It don't play like that. Go Stars. Go Stros. That's the Louie Bellina show. The Rangers, we are not fans of, to be clear. The Rangers are one of the most hated teams in Major League Baseball history. So just a little correction there. Now, Jeff, I appreciate the text message, and I understand there's different perspectives on things in life. I mean, I'm aware of that, but go Stars. That's a fact of life. We all agree on that. Go Stars and go Astros. Stros. Go Stars, go Stros. When we come back, Olin Buchanan joins me inside the Charles Schwab studio. It's the Louie Bellina Show, Tuesday on The Zone.